Good morning. So it is December the 5th, and this is the Parks and Recreation Department Advisory Board meeting, and I'll call it to order. And Rose is going to start us with an invocation, and immediately afterwards we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Bow your heads, please. Our Heavenly Father, we give you so much thanks for this time of the year, for the reason that we are here today, and also for this community that we live in, that it prospers and it shares our vision and our goals for our future, for our children, our grandchildren, and then for. We ask that you give us praise for and glory for everything that we do for you this time of the year, and that you advise the community to be just what you want them to be in this time of the year, giving, loving, and sharing. I give you thanks for all you have bestowed upon us this time of the year and all year long, and for the Parks Department and our fellow committee members here and the community who helps us obtain and retain those events and those things that are important for our community. In your name, I give you thanks. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is there anyone here that would like to make a statement to the board this morning? All right, and we are looking at our meetings minutes from September the 12th. Are there any changes or recommendations for those minutes?
Move to accept minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, those are approved. And now we have the presentation of the Parks and Recreation Recognition Awards, which I'm excited to see so many people out here to get them.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming this morning. I'm going to try to keep it brief since we have so many people. I know y'all have jobs, y'all have things to do and places to be. So I'm going to call you guys up in groups. If y'all are have groups that you're associated with, we'll take your pictures, and then we'll take a big group photo at the end, and then you are free to leave. You do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting. I'd like to take a few moments to recognize our important members of the community for assisting our department through a variety of ways, either through money, in-kind services, volunteering, support, everything they do to help us provide successful community events and quality services for our community. So, without further ado, I'd like to recognize Mamacita's Restaurant for sponsoring our July 4th fireworks for over 10 years now, and they have already committed to fund next year's fireworks as well. So we'd like to recognize Mamacita's. Is there anybody here from? Okay. Next, I would like to recognize as a group. This group committed to our contributed to our commemorative tree program. We have Pint and Plow. Is there anybody here from Pint and Plow? All right. We have Basement Brewers. Can you come up to the front? There you go. I'm going to stand right up here. We'll take a picture. The Pierce family and the Disorda family.
Front center.
All right, Friends Center.
Okay. Pretty good. What's that? Pretty good.
Target practice.
Gonna hold it up.
Oh, yeah.
One, two, and one more, just in case. Thank you very much. Like I said, these individuals and businesses donated to our community tree program to help plant trees in our parks. Next, we have for sponsoring our skateboard competition, T&J Engraving. Anybody from T&J? They help us put on this event every year. They do a lot of the planning and the legwork for it, so we really appreciate their efforts. We have the Bosworth Company and the Callow Foundation for sponsoring our Movies in the Park series. The Bosworth Company has been sponsoring it since 2008, and which is a long time, and the Callow Foundation has been sponsoring it since 2015. So we really appreciate them helping to grow our program and to provide quality services to our community. Thank you very much. And one more. Okay. All right, we have our next group sponsored our Concerts by the River series we had this year. We had 5 concerts at Louise Hayes Park. We have USB Financial, Mini Mart, and Kerrville Motors, and also James Avery was a sponsor. We can get y'all to come up to the front if you were present. Okay. Mini Mart?
Bet you couldn't tell.
No? Thank you very much.
All right.
And one more. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, so next I would like to recognize Hill Country Bicycle Works for your contribution every year for helping us put on the kids triathlon. Y'all really do most of the work, and it's a fantastic event. We had our highest participation numbers this year. We're very proud of, so we really appreciate your
24 years.
24 years. Thank you, Lisa.
No, 25. I can't believe it. I have kids that are bringing their kids.
Sponsoring our Wet and Wag event, we'd like to recognize Dogology from Fredericksburg. They've been sponsoring this event every year. They provide fantastic treat bags for the dogs if y'all attend the event, and all of that is completely sponsored by Dogology. We'd like to recognize them as well. Thank you so much. So Fast Printing, we would like to recognize them as well. They provide us a lot of quality work and in-kind sponsorships throughout the year on a lot of our printing and design services. So we're very thankful for that. And they also made these great certificates for us. Thank you very much. Okay, the next group sponsored our first Kerrville River Festival event this year. We had quite a few sponsors, and I'd like to bring them all up and recognize everybody that's here. We had James Avery, Shriner University, Republic Services, Garcia Bounce House, K-Pub, Benny Keith, Keg One, Into the Hills Hotel and Conference Center, YO Hotel and Conference Center, and JAM Broadcasting. So if we get everybody up to the front, I'd like to give you your certificate.
You don't hang on those, I want you to photobomb us.
Mickey, get up here.
It's all.
We do it like this?
Shriner. Public Services. Sherry. Oh, I saw that. Back there getting a picture. K-Pub, we got Mike. Keg One.
Thank you.
And thank y'all so much for your contribution. I know it's sometimes difficult to get sponsors not only for events, but for our first year events. And this would not have been anywhere near as successful if y'all didn't contribute. So we really appreciate everything that you've done for us.
1, 2, and again, and one more time just in case. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
There. Oh, it's okay.
I'll be in the group photo.
There you
Okay, is HEB here? I'd like to also recognize HEB. They sponsor our a lot of what we do, actually. They provided sponsorship baskets and gift cards for our 5K that's coming up Saturday. They sponsor our Family Fright Night event and a lot of other activities we do, so we'd like to recognize them. They're not here today. Our pollinator garden volunteers, do we have anybody present from our pollinator garden at Kerrville Shriner Park? Okay, so this group of folks, I don't know if y'all have been to our garden at Kerrville Shriner Park, but this group actually maintains 100% of the garden. They make sure that it's maintained in a way so that we attract pollinators and we retain them, and provides an asset to the park. So we really appreciate everything that they do. And then we also have our Kerrville Shriner Park park hosts. We have Jay, Jack, David, Julie, and Elizabeth, which are not present this morning. They're actually working in the park. So what they do is we have a program which they can offset their rent basically for work. They'll work a certain amount of hours a week, and then we won't charge them rent, but we do put them to work very hard. They clean our bathrooms, they pick up trash, they help us in the field, and they help offset our expenses and keep the park looking great. And last but not least, I would like to thank our sponsorships for our competitive lifeguard team. We have Hill Country Pool and Spas and the Kerrville Professional Firefighter Association. They contributed to help cover the expenses it costs to send the teams to our competitions. So, do you have any present? Okay, all right, if we could get everybody up for a group photo, and then I will let you guys go. Martin, are you gonna yell at us?
You have to scoot in.
You have to do 2 rows, huh? There you go. Just like, there we go.
Y'all can show your certificates too.
And one more time. And last time.
Perfect. Thank y'all so much for everything that y'all do. We really appreciate it.
Yes, sir, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
We're kind of empty now.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, well, that is really wonderful to see that many people who are supporting the Parks Department. So I appreciate them being here. Okay, Jesse is going to talk about public art.
Thank you.
Oh.
Jesse, if I could just intro this real quick. Just a reminder from our last meeting, for those of you that were not here, we talked about the possibility of doing public art murals or public art at the web walls under the 16 bridge. I did actually meet with TxDOT yesterday to ask them about this process because it is a TxDOT bridge. We don't own it. And they said that more than likely we'd be allowed to do this, but they need to look into it. It'd be something that we'd have to maintain, which we would, but we had started those conversations with them and it looks to be favorable. Turn it back over to Jesse.
So we got these, I guess it's a mural. We got it over to Ashley late. Matter of fact, just yesterday, about 4. Anyway, we got kind of behind on that. This is something that we've been putting together for a while, trying to get the right photos, the right time of day and stuff like that. And, you know, we still have maybe a few more filters that we can throw in there, but, you know, this is kind of landmarks in Kerrville. You know, it's just kind of really one of those things where you can put up on the wall and go and take a picture, you know, saying that I've been to Kerrville, you know, type of thing. And, you know, these are some of the landmarks that are here. You know, we're open to any ideas of what you can, you know, whatever y'all think we can do improve this. We're gonna work on some more filters to kind of make it look a little bit more, this is one that has a filter. There's a few that don't actually have any, so you can see a little bit clearer. There's some with the dam, some with the river, some with the, I don't know, tree in the back. That one has the filter. I don't remember how many we sent. Oh, that was the original. So my idea on the mural would be to put it right here where the walking path is at. That way, when people are walking, they can, stand right there and you take a group photo or whatever they want to do. And then, of course, we'll put it up, just high enough so it's out of reach of, taggers or whatever that go over there, maybe like 7 foot up. And that still gives us a, really big amount of space to actually do the mural. And these other spaces, we've been working with, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Aurora Jolene. She's the one that did the matter of fact, the artwork that's out there. She's said we have the okay to use some of her artwork because she has really bright colors, and I think that really would make everything stand out. And we can, use it in different places, maybe get her to work on some stuff because she's not going to charge us to do it. She just wants to, display her art as well. So, so we asked her to come up with something, Kerrville type, so she'll do it on a smaller scale and then we'll, print it up larger. So we're still in the process on that part. So, but if anybody has any input on what we can do or where we can find
I
sources.
have a comment. This mural that you're doing, you've got the Kerrville Chalk Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And from the park, the city does a ton of events. And I don't know whether we should just pick one out that is advertised and displayed on this thing when we have all of these other events as
Sure.
well. And, what gives that one the priority to be on a permanent public art thing.
Exactly.
So big.
Yeah, so I would suggest do something else versus.
What about the butterfly? I mean, maybe
I
taking
like the butterfly.
Okay.
I mean, it looks great, but I think that, because we have a butterfly garden and we just gave a thing for it, and, but I think that we should the landmarks are fine, but
Specific events.
the specific
Yeah,
event.
it's
there
an
you go.
event, yeah.
And then the other thing, you were talking about having it at that one spot for people to be able to take pictures. A lot of times the kayak canoe concession is right underneath there. Right? Is that what you're talking about? That
I think
piece
so.
of-
Where the path is at.
We could actually, there's several web walls there. We could pick any
Yeah.
of them to start with.
Okay.
Instead of just taking the chalk festival off, that butterfly's big enough. What if we put on some of the other things? The July 4th, the other things that the city does too. Because, some of these things.
Well, look at the size of the magazine's this thick now. I mean, do you do the daddy-daughter dance? Do you do the...
Well, I think anything that brings in over 10,000 people, we could put on there. I mean, that could be a thing. And we, the 4th of July brings in many more than that. Chalk Festival brings in. We have other things that come in.
So the Chalk Festival isn't really parks, is it?
That's correct. It's an event that we support, but it's not our
It's
event.
not-
We
it's
don't
not a
produce it.
parks event.
Same with July 4th.
Oh, so you only want park events. Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just think that, once you pick 1 or 2 or 4 or 6 or 9, where do you stop and where do you start? And you put this big thing, and then people are like, well, why isn't my event up there? And why isn't my event up there?
Well, that's
And I do this on my event. And so, I don't know. I just think you're going down a path that
We don't need to.
you don't need to go down. Instead of highlighting events, we're highlighting the city.
Well,
I mean, what about the Park and Rec logo?
Well, I don't know. If we set some guidelines, if we put things that say bring in 7,000 or 10,000 people to our community, I mean, that's a guideline. And someone says, well, why wasn't the daddy-daughter dance on it? Well, we're looking at things that are bringing in huge amounts of people. I don't know. It's just a thought. I'd like to have the fish on there somewhere.
And we thought about the fish, but it's kind of,
Okay.
the fish is already
Redundant.
there
Yeah, it's
at the
redundant.
park, so it's like, I told them, don't even put the fish there because you're gonna see it in two places, like, you can turn around and it's behind you
I
type
mean,
thing,
what about
so,
the Riverside Nature Center?
yeah.
Or the Shriner Park. I mean, I guess the teepee is used in Shriner Park. Is that the teepee from there?
Yeah.
The sports event.
I don't know. I just think that the landmarks, going down the thing on the events, I think, people have ability to have banners for different events and different publicity, things like that. I mean, I understand that it's nice to publicize the events, but I think this should be publicizing Kerrville.
Well, and I like the idea of not having the events because you have the folk festival probably would arguably be
Oh, yeah, the folk
one of
festival,
the
well, they
more.
bring in more than 10,000.
And so, but again, as soon as you put an event, you risk leaving one off. We could go through a scenario. Somebody mentioned sport events. I also like not having schools or sporting events on here because as soon as you put Tivy, Centerpoint's going to say, well, we're not Kerrville, but this
Right.
area, and I think the more inclusive you can become, landmarks. Even if you leave out a landmark, nobody's going to feel personally, jaded for that. I think leaving it as general the way we have it, just the Chalk Festival coming off and sort of figuring that out, includes more people. And if that's the idea behind this, I think that's the hope. Because the moment you begin, and pictures of people too, any murals I've ever done, the moment you put someone's face or someone's kid, someone else is going to be upset, or the uniforms are going to change, and you'll need to redo it. These landmarks don't change that often,
Yeah.
and so that's that's kind of the hope, is that you don't. It's not something you want to have to redo every 2 years because it becomes outdated. And so events, just there's some personal connections to events that I think people would not,
Okay.
the least controversial.
I'm not excited about the butterfly because everything else is pictures.
Right.
So, I mean, to me, I would rather see the river there or maybe a Riverside Nature Center or, but maybe just me. But to me, it looks out of
character.
It doesn't look like it belongs in the
Okay. Yeah, we were just kind of
playing
trying to
with
figure out, what's an actual landmark in Kerrville. So we,
Well,
I didn't, but,
garage in there.
one of my guys was driving around. Yeah.
Parking
So,
garage.
I mean, we still have room
I know.
for more landmarks if anybody can think of any, like Riverside Nature Center, that's a good one. We didn't think of that, but, if there's something else that anybody else can recommend, we'd be glad to take a picture because we have plenty of space and, that's why we filled it in with the tree, that type of thing, so.
Well, and then, you've got Kerrville, Texas there. We have that, that Kerrville welcome sign on I-10. That's all, landscaped nicely and everything.
Oh,
So-
get rid of this one and then put something
Maybe.
like that. That's a good
Use
idea.
an image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except this
use
one
the
has the
image
date it's
of
established.
that sign that's at the,
At the-
so then you take out and everything becomes a landmark.
Sure, yeah.
You know where I'm talking about, the one on I-10.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this one has the date when we were
Oh,
established.
she's talking about the top one.
Down at the bottom, I'm not talking about that. I'm
She's
talking about
the yellow one.
the yellow written cursive.
I like that.
Yeah.
Design-wise, that's good.
But I don't think, that was one of my complaints about that sign. It doesn't say Texas, it just says Kerrville on that sign on I-10. But
We're in Texas.
I think having Texas is Kerrville, Texas. There's other Kerrvilles.
Yeah, it's good to have
There's
that.
one other.
What's that?
There's only one.
There's only one, yeah.
One other one, yeah, so.
So we'll work on the artwork up, we'll add that, and if y'all have any recommendations on other landmarks, y'all can reach out and get with us. We'll work on, tweaking this image, I guess, a little bit more. We'll give you a couple more renditions, the throw some filters at it, and so you can, you know, kind of make it look like artwork versus just photographs put together.
I don't know if the star, I don't know if that would show up very well in here. Yeah, the star that's downtown on Earl Grey and Water.
The one that's on the road.
It's on the road, but.
Oh, on
that might
the
be
on the
covered.
You'd
actual
have to
road,
get up.
yeah.
Get a
Aerial
drone,
view. Maybe
yeah.
we can Google Earth that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I
about,
don't know how well it would look, but I was just trying to think of other landmarks, because
what do you think of Shriners University?
it's,
The entrance we redid with the
Yeah,
sea.
they've got that little tower
The tower and the
they put up
entrance.
there, yeah, at their entrance.
Do we have any other?
I think this is a good start.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a great
Good job.
start.
Good
I
start.
think it's a great start. I think it's a great idea to highlight the landmarks that set it apart. I think that's a great idea.
I love the axis deer. That's cool. You know,
Although, of course, native would be the whitetail, since the axis aren't native. But it's a good
well, but
picture.
it's a big draw to Kerrville. Have these,
Right now it is.
Yeah.
have these things wandering around in your yard.
Yeah, I think it's a great start.
Oh, I do too. I like it a lot.
So we'll work on it some more, and we can't install anything anyway till it warms up. So it wouldn't be till,
Spring.
yeah, we can, you know, it won't. It makes it really difficult to do it in the cold, so on cold cement especially. So
What type of material are you thinking?
it is vinyl. There's two different options. I mean, there's one that's I guess environmentally friendly. It's not actual plastic. Can't remember the exact name of it. But like they use it a lot in California because, you know, they're EPA type things and stuff like that. So they try to cut down on stuff like that. And we can use that, you know, it's environmentally friendly, but it's a little bit more expensive.
Okay. And I
So,
recall.
but if not, then we can just do the vinyl, which is, you know, real thin plastic adhesive back type thing.
If I remember correctly, you mentioned that it's pretty vandal,
It'll be
not
it'll
vandal
be-
proof, but
it'll be laminated, so we can wipe it off.
wipe it off pretty easily. Great.
Vandal resistant.
That's what I was looking for.
And
Are we going
Tennessee.
to have artwork on both sides of the
I remember right.
thing, the bridge supports? Or just one side?
looks like we're looking first at the one down by the river trail
Right,
itself.
right.
And then we'll go on from there.
Back to that picture,
Which one is that? Oh, the
the location.
That, of all the, can we get back to the picture of all of the bridge
what about
Yeah.
that?
lights?
Towards the seal.
Oh,
There.
There. I just wonder when we start doing those, are we gonna alternate and have 2 on each side or 3 on each side, or are we just gonna do them on one side?
I think we'll cross that bridge when we get to that point.
Because it's
Get one of them.
Yeah,
expense. to
one
do
at a time. The
expense
expense will be,
I was just curious.
Expense.
Oh, expense.
See how the first one
It's
goes.
suspense. This is what's coming next.
Yeah. Anything else on the art project?
no. That's all we had, so.
Okay, so we will move to talk about the volunteer program, and this is something that Charlie and I have been working together on, and we hope to see it as a board project for 2020. And this is going to be creating a database of volunteers and trying to build that database so that there is the potential for every event to send out a blast to hopefully 100 to 200 volunteer data pool and pull in people who are interested in that particular event to come in and be a volunteer. And so we've looked at some ways of how to start generating that, and Charlie has access to a software that would help us to do that. And he would have, be able to develop the link and things like that people could sign up for. But what we would be looking at is who can we initially contact to be a part of that, and a couple of ways that we have talked about. And then we're also going to get with Rosa because she's part of this from the Parks Department has been looking at this, and so we haven't quite had a chance to meet with her, but we're meeting with her soon on that. But what Charlie and I talked about is a couple of different ways. One is through the board, like everybody on the board send out an email or a letter to people that they think would like to be in a volunteer pool, and you would have an opportunity. We've developed a letter that you could use as your possibility, or you can edit as you see fit. And then the second way is to approach some of our larger businesses in Kerrville and talk to hopefully the CEO about having that be part of the way that they get involved in the community, is for their employees to be approached to see if they would like to be a part of the volunteer pool. And so we've developed a letter for that, and it would take Charlie and I and or any other board member that would like to participate in that, going to see and have specific conversations with those people. So, Peterson Hospital and James Avery, and we would be open to finding other people, other businesses that y'all think would like to participate, or that would be open to having a conversation about it. Come in. So just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a update of what we're looking at for 2020 to really help with all of these added on and more programs that the Parks is doing. It's a way of having a regular and ongoing group that they know that can come in and participate.
So let me ask you, we have a lot of volunteer boards in the city, and that Opens Meeting Act that doesn't allow you to send emails to, so like if this bulk email had everybody on a particular board, is that going to be a problem? So say like people that signed up to be in the volunteer pool, like everybody on this board signed up to be in the pool, and everybody on the Planning and Zoning Board decided to volunteer to be in the volunteer pool. And this blast email went out for each of the individual city events. And does that...
Well, they wouldn't be able to respond to it. I mean,
right,
directly, because that's what creates the issue, is if you respond. Right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And two,
I mean,
we all as private citizens belong to different groups that,
I just am throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Just something that we should make sure that if we go down this path, that we check with the, I guess, city attorney or whoever needs to know this, and whether or not are we going to run into problems with this?
I think you bring up a great point, because like I'm a hospice volunteer, and if I'm in the volunteer pool, I also volunteer with Cindy the Hills, things like that.
Right.
So
I think if you create an opt-in, opt-out option within this pool of volunteers, and you allow people to jump in and jump out as they and it's more like a newsletter. Here's what's happening with the City Parks and Rec Department this week. We need people to do this.
I understand.
If you volunteered and you've opted into that, I don't see any conflict, because it isn't necessarily a meeting. We're not inviting people to an official business meeting. This is just an opportunity to step up. But I mean, it's at least worth a question to the city attorney to make sure that we're not.
Because I know that, like, as individual citizens, we can go to a ribbon cutting, or we can go to, but once we have enough people to form a quorum, we have to send out a public announcement that there's going to be enough people at a parks department at a certain event that makes a quorum, that has and so I think that I just think it's something, that a conversation that needs to be had.
I do believe, though, that it's specifically focused on conducting business. So if the group of us get together and play poker at my house, that's not necessarily a Parks and Rec meeting, unless that's the purpose of the
We're pulling together volunteers for a city-run event.
Right, which is different than a city meeting.
Right, no, because if enough people from this board are at that city event, right?
It's a quorum. If you have a quorum,
if you have a
you have
quorum,
to post an agenda.
You have to post an agenda.
I think you bring up a good point about the the policy and the law. I think if it sounds like to me that the communication, you can't respond to it on the email.
Right.
But what you may have to do is have a link that you would punch onto to go and sign up.
Yeah.
Right,
Which,
right,
which
right.
I don't think is an issue. If you can't respond to it, then you're not creating a walking quorum, which is okay. I think the question there is, who sends the email? If it's a board member, then that could possibly violate
Right.
the policy.
That's what I'm saying. I think this all needs to be run by the city
Right.
attorney.
And which we can do.
Yeah.
We can run that trap
Yeah.
on our end.
And because the thing is that if enough board members from a particular committee volunteer to go to that and help at that event, right?
Yeah, we just need to know from each
like that-
person that
So if
maintains
we
a
all
board.
show up at an event, that creates a quorum issue, even
Yeah.
if it's not a meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's ass.
Did you take the city? Did you? Take
I remember it. But I
Do we have another board
must have
member?
missed that.
The law is very tricky, very
Yeah.
very specific. So
It
anytime
is.
that we know we're gonna have a quorum at one of our
Oh, okay,
events,
so-
or even at the possibility of it, we
We
post
didn't
an
have
agenda just to be
five.
on the safe side.
Yep.
Okay.
So be careful what restaurant you go to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I remember
Each
watching
other.
the
Yeah,
thing.
but it's real. They talk about it that if you run into people and you start talking about,
and you start talking. That's what to me. I thought it was about the conducting of business. If there's an expectation that business is
anything.
conducted.
yeah, but the thing is that you just never know. So that they specifically say if you have a quorum at a public event, then
Yeah.
what
It's a
Ashley's saying. And if we're rounding up volunteers for park and rec events, that we should just make sure that all this passes muster with the attorney, and so
Sounds
that we
good.
just don't get into
Yeah.
trouble.
I think so. Great.
Cool.
Thank you. That's a good idea. Charlie, did you want to add anything else?
Ma'am.
Okay. And so now we're going to go to project update.
Malcolm?
I guess the one that doesn't have the arrow is just worn off. I guess that's it. Good morning. Give you an update on some projects that are ongoing, and Martin's gonna help me. Martin, you hear me? Martin? Let's start with the tennis center. We are probably about 65% done with the tennis center, but the challenge we're having right now is we're fixing to get into the busy season with tennis starting in late February. So the contractor knows that we have some scheduling challenges. And we've had great weather, and so one of the things we're trying to get them to do is make sure they're aware that, we can't just be on their schedule. We've got to make sure that we're conscientious about running the tennis center. So that prompted then a pretty busy few weeks. I'm going to show you a video, and we're hoping this works. I'm not going to stop it because that seems to affect the quality of the video. But what you'll see as it pans across the site, the actual pro shop, which has been renovated, construction on the tennis courts, and grading, which was a big issue going into the plan for the tennis center because it was just not designed as a tennis center plan. It was piecemeal. And when they started sticking stuff on the ground, there really wasn't any comprehensive drainage. So that's been a challenge. And then you'll see how they're building the tennis courts with sub-base and compacting that, and then how the hot mix is brought to the site. Anyway, I thought it was a pretty good comprehensive snapshot of the construction. So there's the pro shop. There's the drainage channel that's going in. See an excavator in there. In the back, you see them laying hot mix asphalt on top of the tennis courts. That's a little more progressive phase of the tennis court. That's a little further along than the one you're seeing here, which is just getting the base material down in, and you see the compactor rolling that base in. All that new fencing that's going in has been beefed up substantially larger than in the past. And then that's looking at the future parking lot in the back. And then there's the guys dropping the hot mix asphalt on site. So it all has to be orchestrated. That just happened to be a real busy day, so I
Yeah.
figured that video was pretty good to show. There's not much more building structural work to do. All the shelters are in. The pro shop is primarily finished. The big challenge now is getting the drainage done. That ditch-looking thing in between the courts is going to be a dry riverbed. It's going to be rocks and landscaped. It won't look like a ditch. That's got quite a bit more work to do. And then obviously getting the parking lot paved, getting the irrigation in, and getting the tennis courts refinished, resurfaced, and then get all the fencing in. So we probably got at least until February to get this complete. So that's kind of the update on the majority of the tennis center. We do have, if you knew much about the tennis center, you know that there was 4 courts built detached down behind Peterson. They're literally 75 yards away from the rest of the tennis center. So one of the goals here was to connect those 4 courts more closely to the rest of the tennis center. It's part of it. It's used, but there was no ADA access. People actually drive over there, not even sign in at the pro shop. The parking lot was crushed granite at best, mostly just weeds. So that's all been reworked. It's all concrete parking now. The drainage has all been completed. And then we've got ADA access to the pro shop, which is going to allow for the manager of the complex and for the people who are there using the complex to be able to get down to those lower courts a lot better. So right now, Daniel, the tennis pro, is trying to work around the work schedule. One of the things that the contractor was mandated to do is always leave some of the courts open. So that's kind of getting jostled back and forth. But it's working, and we've got good weather now. So if you happen to go by there, you can pull up to the tennis center like you're a player and kind of snoop around. The River Trail going to and through Schreiner University, we are probably about 10% into construction on that one. That starts at G Street Trailhead, goes across the old G Street Bridge, and then cuts in behind the River Trail cottages and goes east. And then it goes under the bridge to the cemetery, follows the edge of the cemetery around until you get to a fordable area on Quinlan Creek, and then we're going to have a kind of a low water crossing there that'll get you onto the campus itself, and then it winds back around over to Travis Street. In addition to that, the university is building a perimeter crushed granite trail as kind of a piece of this project from their end. That project is got probably as wooded an area of any segment of the trail that we've done. It's kind of similar to down below the dog park in Louise Hayes Park. But this area has been untouched forever. It's just piles of river wash debris, down trees, some really great trees that we've worked around. But just from this photo, which wasn't even in the summer, you can't see literally, in some cases, 10 feet. So it's taken quite a bit of effort there, and the contractor is utilizing some equipment that minimizes where their footprint is. What we've done is marked all the trees that we needed to keep, and then a lot of the dead trees have been taken out with this pretty impressive machine. It's called a Braco, and that machine chews up primarily the underbrush, small trees, a lot of dead trees that we've routed the trail to follow places where we really need to get some of that debris and dead tree out of there, because we have a liability problem with dead trees falling on the trail and that type of thing. So they're probably in the 80% completion of the site clearing. and they've already started some of the excavation for the trail at G Street. So if you drive across the new G Street bridge, you can look over behind the River Trail cottages and you can see that they're already started to grade that for the new concrete trail. So there are 3 primary scheduled areas that we want, and the contractor has been made aware of, that we're trying to work the calendar around. One is we have the River Trail cottages, which is running a business that's dependent upon their backyard. The river is a part of that. So we want to make sure that we get in and out of there with as little impact and as quickly as possible. The other one is below, I don't know if you know where the petroleum equipment company is, but it's the last commercial building before you get to Shriner property. And behind their property is the hardest area of construction. That is by far the steepest, most rocky along the river. There's really nothing good in there, so they know that they're going to have to spend some time with site work in there. And then the third piece is Shriner itself. We've got to work with their calendar to make sure we're not negatively impacting the campus operation. There's that trail section where they were working already. That brush has been cleared out. So you can see it's, and this is a wintertime shot, so you can see that that's going to be pretty nice segment of trail. It'll be a lot, like I said, a lot like some of the areas that we've done along the river in the past. We do have to get underneath the 27 bridge. This is looking from the cemetery back toward the river. And that area has some specialty work that we have to do, but we have to get under that bridge. Luckily, it's high enough. We can get heavy equipment through there, and it'll be great for the trail. The third project is we've completed that rain catchment project there at the Louise Hayes Park Group Pavilion. The pavilion is far in the back. It's a fairly long run to the tank. The tank is in. We have not done the perimeter. We have to build a perimeter wall around that gravel, probably some type of rock retaining wall, just for 2 reasons: aesthetics and hold that rock in. And then the city will be working on irrigation and landscaping to use that water, and so that'll be going on this winter. I think that's the last one of mine. Yep. Any questions on any of those?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Update on where we are on the audit project. So as you recall, from our last meeting, when we met in September, we were going through the RFP process to replaster the pool on an emergency repair. We received 2 submittals. They were awarded by City Council.
Thank you. In August, and we began the project in September, and it's actually already complete, and I'll show y'all some pictures. So here's an aerial of the Olympic pool before the plaster project. Obviously the pool is drained. You can see the lack of lane lines. The paint is completely gone. You can see most of the plaster is completely gone. It's etched. There's stains in the pool, and this is what it looked like before. I thought that would be a good picture to see. This is a picture of the plaster project before. Again, as you recall, there were holes in the plaster. We had close to at least 30 that we were aware of in the pool, and causing problems. The shell was the plaster shell was coming up. The right picture here on the side is actually the plaster sediment taken from our pool vacuum. So towards the end of the summer, if you were in the pool and you noticed the kind of sandy, gravelly feeling, that was the plaster that you were feeling that was coming up. So it was really just, excuse me, at the end of its life and needing to definitely be replaced. So we did. We started the project, I said, in September. As you can see here, they're demoing. It took them about 45 days or so to complete the project. You can see the gentleman here working on the slope with the little jackhammer there. They basically take out all of the plaster, strip it out, and then prep the shell, and then pour the plaster. We went ahead and took the opportunity to install tile lane lines before they were painted, and they didn't last very long, of course, since it was paint, but this gives it a much longer lifespan here too. It looks quite nice, very professional looking. It's up to code. It's with the dimensions and the width as well. Here's a couple of pictures of the actual plaster process. If y'all have not seen a pool be replastered, it's actually kind of neat. So it takes the guys a while, or the crew, to knock out all the old plaster and to prep it. And then here, after they installed the tile, there was a crew of about 40 folks that rolled in. The parking lot was full of trucks, and they pump in this plaster, and they get to work, and they knock it out. All of this was done within a day. The plaster was redone within a day, and which was incredible. We were out there taking photos and just watching. It's an amazing process, and
I guess because you don't want it to dry out. You got
That's right.
Get it going.
That's right. It has to be applied, it has to be dried, it has to be cleaned up, and it's set and it's cured. And then we filled the pool that same day.
Wow.
Here's a couple more pictures. I laughed because they have great makeshift little shoes, like little ice skates,
Yeah.
with little kind of like snowshoes, so they wouldn't fall on the slope, and they really know what they're doing. We had them retile all the tile around the pool line as well, rebuild the gutter line, and address some of the other issues that we had.
Wow.
Here they are putting on the final touches in the pool. The plaster's down, the tile's down. Now they're just kind of cleaning it up, wiping it up, making sure it's ready to fill. So here's a picture of the tile after the installation. And then here's a before and after of the empty pools. Tried to get somewhat similar of a vantage spot, but I didn't have a drone. So as you can see, it looks quite nice. And on the right, you'll see those are wet spots on the plaster. It's still drying, so those aren't actually in the pool, but it looks very nice. And then a before and after with water.
Yeah.
Big difference.
So big difference there. Okay. Any questions?
How long is that pool?
It's 50 meters by 20.
It is 50 meters. Because somebody says it was just shy of that. It is actually.
It's 50 meters, yeah.
And how far is it across?
20 yards.
20 yards.
Yeah, so it's just shy of an 8-lane pool, 5 meters. So next,
So it's the width of it that makes it slightly smaller than
Yes.
regulation pool.
not the length. That's correct. Yep. So next steps, we need to receive the final study, look at those concept recommendations, and then bring it, evaluate it and bring it to the public as well, that we've talked about before. So we should be getting that wrapped up, final study here quite shortly, so we can wrap this project up.
So, I'm sorry, can you go back to that one before?
This one?
Yeah, so you're gonna receive the final study, and then, so we're still in the process of the potential for bringing in a bulkhead and that sort of thing, is that what you're saying?
Our consultants are finalizing their draft study for us. So once we get that back, staff will look at it, make any recommendations back to them on revisions or anything else we'd like to see, and then we'll bring it forward to the council and the public. See if we have any potential funding sources that might want to contribute to the project as well, because if that's the case, that could potentially change the project. We know we can't afford this bottom right picture. That's about a $26 million facility.
Right.
So what we're working with now is what can we afford? What did the public want? What can we afford? What can we phase? And do we have any potential philanthropic contributors?
So you really haven't gotten any direct input from Schreiner or from the Kerrville school as to what they would contribute? Is that it?
Not yet. We received their initial feedback once we started the study to see what they actually needed. At the time, both of the organizations said we can't contribute to capital funding, which we understand, but they could at that time potentially contribute to operating costs. But again, it all rolls back to what does this cost? They can't contribute a number until they know what it's going to be.
I see.
So
this is this is still future, like probably 2 to 3 years down the line.
it's just all contingent on funding. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, director's report. So as you guys know, the items that we have here are basically the items that from your last meeting to your March meeting. So I'm going to talk about the activities that have gone on or about to happen. Our Kerrville River Festival was held September 7th. Can I get a show of hands of who actually attended that from our board? Yeah, great. We had about 1,500 in attendance, celebrated the 130th anniversary birthday of the city, and our headliner was Bart Crow. We had the 130 marquee that we lit up on stage or off to the side of the stage when our council introduced the bands to highlight the event. We had fireworks display afterwards, which I thought were a fantastic addition to the event and produced from the same group that we used for our July 4th fireworks. Again, we had a promoter agreement for this event. We contracted this out. Staff was very involved with the selection of the bands and the overall production of the event, but for all the logistics, we contracted that out with a professional company that does this on a regular basis. We spent about $57,000 on this event, and then for our 2020 event, we took this option to our city council last month, and I gave them an overview of the event and received a consensus of let's do kind of the same year type of scope. Let's keep it around 60 or so thousand. Keep the fireworks show, and then I also recommended, based on community feedback, board feedback, and then what we saw at the event, is let's move it from September to October to where it's a little bit cooler. It gives us more planning time, allows us more time to get bands that we want, and it also will coincide with the Chalk Festival, so we can capitalize and co-market those events to capture a larger audience. Because as their event's kind of ending, our concert will be starting.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
We also spoke with the CVB. We did a lot of background, obviously, when we were looking at selecting the state. We checked with the CVB. They said it's a great weekend for hotel rooms. It gets dark around 7:45. So essentially what I'm trying to say is we put a lot of effort into researching this date and listening to the community on what the community wants as well. They said, we don't want another summer event. It's too hot. So this is why we recommended this date, and this is what we're going to go with. Again, it's going to have free admission, and then we also are going to merge our Get Outdoors Day activities with this event, so we have a little bit more things for the kids to do a little bit earlier, have our bounce houses, have our, all of our vendors and our booths there, and then create more of a family event, and then have the concert and the fireworks after that.
And so do you have a date for the
October 17th.
October 17th.
no, for the outdoors in Kerrville? Oh, I see.
Combining it.
Combining that with it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be a
Get Outdoors Day was originally, goes with the National Get Outdoors Day, but it's in June and it's hot again.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
always been a challenge getting people there.
Yeah. That's the event that we've had discussion with the board about with, let's have it in the morning. Okay, that didn't work. Let's have it in the afternoon. Okay, that didn't work. Let's have it in the morning again. We kind of flip-flopped it back for the past 5 or 6 years, and we just can't get a good reception from this event. So we said, why don't we merge it and make it one big, great event? So that's what we're going to try to do for next year. We've been working with Shriner University regarding the design of our logo. Their graphic design class, each student had a project to design their perception of the logo for us, and we've met with them several times, provided feedback, and these are the top 3 logos that we are looking at for our logo. Of course, we can work with the student to make revisions to it as we see fit, but I'd like to open it up to the board to provide any feedback or comments that you have.
So when you say our logo, you mean for the river?
For the River Festival event, not our Parks
Right.
Department logo.
So what about getting the Get Outdoors be part of it, or you're trying to keep those separate?
We're not really trying to keep it separate. We're trying to go away from the Get Outdoors Day event title and make it, merge it on to this Kerrville River Festival, which we
is Get
encourage
Outdoors Day.
all of that.
Okay, so that would be a part, the Get Outdoors events would still be under the umbrella of the River Festival, so you're not gonna have a Get Outdoors.
They're not 2 separate events. It's
Yeah.
one event. Yes,
Okay.
correct. Yeah. So we asked them, we said we want to focus on, we want it to look like Kerrville. So you see the cypress trees in there, you see the hills, you see the river. We wanted the title pretty obvious, which the top right corner is an awesome design, but you don't really see, the title doesn't really stick out there. But it's very well done. So
I like the one with the tree better. Design wise,
Which one?
the with the guitar and the tree, the red cypress and the guitar. The guitar pick with the head is really cool, but it only says music. I like the green, yellow, and blue logo as well. It seems more cartoony, And I don't know why my personal preferences tend to shy away from the cartoony logos, but some people like that. I think the Kerrville River Festival one, the with the guitar and the tree, that's a really cool logo, and I could see that being a pin or a button or a patch and something people would want as a magnet, like just to keep, because that I don't know, from just a pure, like, that one looks cool to me, so I would wear that. I would put that on my refrigerator. The other one's just it's good. It's a great logo. They're all great logos. I just for some reason my preference is that one. If that's the feedback you're looking for, I'm not sure outside of that what help I could be.
Looking for any and all feedback to help us make our decision. I'm going to ask
what
them.
you're saying about the one that's the blue and green and yellow, that it is sort of cartoony. I see what you're saying about this being a pin, because I think that's kind of a cool idea to have that as something that's sold at the event, like a pin or a patch. But the other one, to me, would be more inclusive of the outdoors activities. Because I don't know, it just seems more.
Because the river's there.
Yeah, yeah. But
I guess the tree with the roots kind of depicts it.
Yeah.
Well, and logos are tough. You can't. It's hard to design something that encompasses everything and answers every question that anybody. It's the same with that mural we were talking about. You can't. It's hard to include everything. So simple, clean says. I tend to lean more towards that in design, but we have more expert opinion in that matter on this board than mine. I know what I like.
all anybody can say.
Rose and Jesse probably.
I know.
Okay.
Anybody else want to add some input?
The only thing I would recommend on the one that's red and black, maybe taking out the tree and adding something else that includes outdoor, like the one that's yellow and, of course not so cartoonish, but something similar to that gives you something outdoors wise. The guitar is perfect and the lettering, and like you said, it's like an emblem that you can use. But taking out the tree, I'm not, the tree that I can see the
think
Kerrville in it, but not.
The cypress
Not
tree
the-
Indicative of the river.
of the river.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
would,
something like you said, something that entices somebody to, oh, this is where we play at.
But it has to have that same kind of linear.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what it would.
I would kind of just add a little more space down below the River Festival and kind of make the guitar a little, make it turn into a river to meet up with the cypress tree.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
Ooh, I like that. They need you, Rose, to draw this out for them.
Could be kind of cool.
So somehow get a river in there.
Get the music, the river, and the tree.
Yep.
Great feedback. And we're going to have them take out the second annual, because this is something that I don't want to have
Right.
to reproduce every
Yeah.
year.
Right.
Generic.
Just, yes.
That's our logo, and this is our brand.
Yes.
So thanks for y'all's feedback on that. Of course, we had the Triathlon Festival at the end of September. Over 17 states were represented, 1,700 total participants all over, and the economic impact, according to the CVB, was 1.2 to 1.4 million. I'd like to kind of highlight that number because, as you guys know, events such as this, they have an economic impact on the community. And every once in a while we hear griping about, oh, the traffic's terrible through the triathlon, and we understand, we get it. Nobody likes traffic, but on the flip side, this is doing a lot of good for our community. It's bringing people here, they're spending money, and it's helping the local businesses as well.
It was nice to see there was that letter to the editor, and how many people responded positively to it.
Yeah, that was
And
wonderful,
that was-
wasn't it?
Yeah, and I thought that was good. I mean, it's, we can all gripe about all kinds of things. It's one day,
Yeah.
or 2 days.
Yeah, it's a
But,
weekend.
the sprint is pretty quick. It's over fairly quickly.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
they do it.
the one on Sunday is a little bit more.
They
Yeah,
do a great-
there is a more disruption in town.
Yeah.
But
They do a good job posting the signs in
Yeah.
advance of the the event. They're up a couple weeks before the event even starts.
So out of 1726, only 110 participants were from this area?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do we know where all the rest of them were from?
We do. We have a list
Everywhere.
of where they're all from.
Well,
I couldn't tell you off the
how
top of my
far
head.
away did the one come that was furthest away?
I don't
We
know.
have
I know there's people from
bikes
out of state.
Yeah.
I
people
talked
that
to a
rent
guy
bikes.
from Australia.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, they're in the they're coming down, or they have relatives in the area, and they see there's a triathlon, and they
Come for that.
they're not
that
coming
weekend.
necessarily for the triathlon,
They're-
but they're adding it to their
Agenda.
trip.
Yeah, and this is a stop for the Ironman. If they're competing in the Ironman, they have to have so many triathlons under their belt before they can get to the Ironman.
Actually, this is not called a half Ironman. It's half distance. It's not an Ironman
Really?
event.
Yeah.
Well, Ironman is a brand.
A brand.
Yes.
Right.
And
But-
they're
but they
not
still have-
part.
But they still have
They
to.
still have to compete in so many to get to the Ironman.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think that this one was.
It's not a
Qualifier.
qualifier.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it can
it's
still
not-
count as.
It's not a qualifying, but it counts to their, whatever they have to do.
Right.
Okay.
You would include it on your application. You have to
Yes.
apply to run an Ironman, and you would include this.
Okay. Speaking of great events, we have the Kerrville Chalk Festival again. It was held in October. It's produced by the Callow Foundation, and the city provides support for this event. Estimations from the Callow Foundation and the CVB was around 10,000 people in attendance. They had 68 artists, and the benefactor this year was Our Lady of the Hills, and they received $45,000 for that event. Okay, movies in the park. This is something new we had this year for our Halloween series. We held 4 movies throughout October to gear up the community for our new Haunted House at the Pool and for our Family Fright Night event. We have about 250, 300 people attend the movies, and all of the movies were selected based on feedback from the community. So we opened up a poll, let people vote on it, add their choices if it wasn't an option, and we've also actually opened up that poll for our summer series and our Halloween series for 2020 as well. It's already on Facebook. It's a free event. Our Haunted Ghoul Pool was new this year, and I'd like to recognize Rosa Ledesma, our Parks and Recreation Specialist. This was her event, and she did a knockout job, and Celeste was very involved as well, and we really appreciate your help. But it was held at the Olympic Pool, $5 admission fee. Go through as many times as you want. We had 2 tours. We had a family-friendly tour, and then after 8 o'clock, we turned it up and had actors jumping out, scaring folks, and it was a really great event, and it was very well done. Family Fright Night was held on Halloween in Louise Hayes Park. I know several of y'all were involved in the planning process and actually helped with the event, and we appreciate that always. Again, extremely successful, around 3,000 folks or so throughout the event. You can see we have, it looked like this basically throughout the whole event. It was crowded. People were having a great time. We had 40 or so booths from the community handing out candy and doing games with the kids, and we had a costume contest, and so it was good. Some things that we're looking at for doing for next year, since it's going to be held on a Saturday, is following it up with a movie in the park that day, and then maybe moving it down, because it is getting so large, moving it down to the field, and that way it opens it up, have a little bit more elbow room, and it opens up the top parking for vendors and sponsors and the public if there's room up there too.
The only thing nice about where it is the weather. You remember when the weather was pouring down rain and everybody crammed
into the pavilion.
But you
Yeah,
can-
that'll be our backup plan, would be the pavilion. So, Family Fright Night. Again, free to the community. Our Holiday Lighted Parade, our most recent event. I'm sure most of y'all are probably there. I know a lot of y'all we put to work. Miss Bradshaw, thank you so much for being a driver and coordinating all of that. It was held, of course, downtown. We had 91 entries. It's a holiday tradition in Kerrville. We had thousands in attendance, and that we actually had a drone photographer this year, and so we captured some drone footage of the crowd. The bottom right photo you can see along Earl Garrett Street there. Our Kerrville City Council, all of them participated in the parade and helped lead with the Grand Marshal. We implemented some pedestrian barricades this year along Earl Garrett Street, and those worked out very nicely, because as the crowds begin to grow each year, they encroach more and more into the street, and streets are only so big, so we need to keep pedestrians safe and to protect them during the parade. So we added those this year. It does take time to set up, so we did hear some feedback from the downtown merchants on, oh, why are you closing 2 hours earlier? We should have known more in advance. Yeah, we probably should have told you, or we should have told you a little bit sooner in advance. But it's more of a safety issue more than anything. We want their businesses to do well, but we also need to protect our pedestrians.
It was really great to have those. It really
It
was.
was. It
Absolutely.
was, especially from a driver's standpoint, that area there gets a little bit narrow and it's hard when it's dark.
And having all the cars off the street so much earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And you really, the barricades make a lot of sense because you have people pulling trailers that are unusual sizes and that they're not used to pulling. They don't recognize the dimensions. Sometimes those trailers are sticking out. I've always worried when pulling a truck in a parade and you have a trailer or following other people, they just don't, you're not thinking about how big that trailer is, and you think it's the same size as your vehicle, and sometimes it's not. So the barricades were a huge help. Thank you for that.
And a side effect that I thought was neat was that for the first time, we had a lot of people that parked in the parking garage for the first time and realized that it's not 10 miles to walk to Francisco's from the parking garage, because they could not park on those streets and they had to find places early. And gee, okay, we'll do the parking garage. And I heard people saying, you know, wasn't bad parking in that parking garage. Gee,
We're certainly glad they utilize it, and we are sensitive to the fact that the shops are still open, and customers are trying to get in there to park, but it takes time to set up for a parade, so we're doing the best that we can to manage both of those aspects. Our city float this year, we actually had a float, which was headed up by our finance department. Our department was pretty busy actually running the event, so this is exciting. We had the city manager and a bunch of city staff and their families with our float, and we had snow that you can see in the picture is basically what I wanted to highlight in this picture, and I thought it was very well received. And then one of the pictures I think you'll see here in a minute is it was neat to see the Tybee band walking behind it, and you can see the snow, air quotes, snow falling down as they're playing and getting the crowd hyped up, which is pretty cool. We had the winners this year. We had our Foundations Academy. They won the youth category. We had the Kerrville State Hospital, which is traditionally has been one of our winners. They usually win this category each year. So they won the nonprofit category. Aaron Plumbing, if y'all recall this float with all the toilets, won the commercial category.
That was so funny.
They teamed up with another plumbing company, I think
That
Hager
is
Plumbing, and they
funny.
did it together.
Yeah.
It was very, very neat to see the camaraderie there. And then there's the marching band with the snow, which I thought was cool. Hopefully it didn't go into any of the instruments and cause any problems, but it was neat to see. It was a good addition to this year. Our Light the Island project, if you have not been out to Tranquility Island yet, it looks like this at night. Of course, the Women's Chamber provides every year the bottom right photo, all of the equipment there, and then our staff actually installs it and puts it up. But the project, or what we did this year, was we could afford essentially 6 wrapped trees, and then we uplit about 30 of them. And we put some at the bottom, we put sleeves in the ground to where we could install poles and then remove them when we're not using them, and then we put non-intrusive bands around the tree to hold the uplights in the top of the tree to provide a bit more effect. We didn't want to drill holes in the trees or to harm the trees in any way. So that's what it looks like. We're looking to hopefully grow this program to extend throughout the entirety of the island within reason. But it's going to be a phased project because it does, cost money, obviously, to do. And we'll probably need to get some permanent power down there as well. We have our very first 5K that our department is putting on this year. It's this Saturday, December 7th. I know some of y'all are helping up there, so I appreciate that. It's a $10 entry fee, and you get a raffle ticket. The first 100 people to sign up gets a free t-shirt. And of course, it's held on our beautiful river trail. It'll start in Louise Hayes Park. And people are encouraged to dress up in it's a fun run, so it's not timed, there's no places, awards are given for everybody, and people are encouraged to dress up in their costume and just have fun running home for the holidays. Daddy-daughter dance, of course, one of our most popular events. Again, it's going to be held in February at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. We are able to take, I think, up to 550 folks this year. We might have upped that to 575. Tickets go on sale in January, and we have discounts for families with multiple daughters. New this 2020, we're doing some promotional days at Kerrville Shriner Park, not only to provide activities for our campers, but activities for the community to create awareness of the park and to get folks out there and see what it's all about, let people know it's not a state park, it's a city park, and there's some opportunities to have fun and enjoy the great outdoors. Sports leagues, we have our adult flag football league. We held one on the fall. Swarm was our champions. We had 4 teams, and then our spring league starts up in March, and it'll be held at the Loop 534, that's a typo, sports fields, and it's $350 per team to participate, adult. Our adult soccer league for our winter league, the registration is now open. The league will start in January, and then we will also have a summer league as well. And it'll be either played at the sports complex or the Landfill Road sports fields, depending on the activity going on at the sports complex. Speaking of activities, we have several groups in the middle of their fall soccer season at the complex. We have both youth organizations, we have the schools that play there, and we do have a youth flag football tournament that is looking at coming to play in the springtime or at the interwinter in February and March timeframe. So I'll give you more details as that becomes available. DBAT has had 21 total tournaments to date for 2019, and so far this year they have had 580 tournament teams. I think they have a couple more tournaments scheduled for the rest of this calendar year, and those are just contingent on whether or not they make, and we'll give their numbers from there.
Is that up from last year?
It is, yeah. Their goal originally was 1,000 teams, if you recall from Mr. Hottishell's presentation a few months ago. But as you can see, they're pulling under that. So they'll probably finish out around, I'm assuming, 600, maybe 700 teams if they get a lot of tournament teams in, if they're successful at the end of this year. But that's probably going to be about where they land. We have our bow hunt that's occurring now at Kerrville Shriner Park. The hillside of the park is closed for hunting. It's a program that's by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and we host it. They pay us to host it, and we staff it. Whitetail, does, spikes, and exotics are all eligible for the hunt. No bucks. They're selected by the Parks and Wildlife Department, and we've been doing this program since 2008, and 178 total deer have been harvested since then. And if you'll notice at the top right corner of the slide, there's a new little picture there. It's nice. Our logo that we created for Kerrville Shriner Park, and we absolutely love it. There's a lot of back and forth that you guys know when creating a logo, and Jesse's company actually developed it and designed it, and we love it. We want to get our brand out there and start letting people know that, listen, we're a city park, we're not a state park, and create our own brand. So you'll start seeing this everywhere.
That's good.
That's very attractive.
Okay, we're narrowing it down to the last 2 slides here. Just want to remind y'all that we have term expirations coming up in March. We have folks that are eligible for reappointment, Celeste, Linda, and Matt. So if y'all are interested in reapplying to the board, which I hope you are, you can get your applications in to the city secretary's office, and the city council will likely appoint the board members in March or April timeframe. So if you're interested in serving again, please get those applications in. And the last thing on the agenda is a review of your 2020 board dates. I listed them here for you. We typically meet the second Thursday, with the exception of March, because spring break is kind of goofy for most folks. So I did want to open this up to the board in case there's any changes that you would like to make on the dates or even the time as well. We are not stuck with the 8:15 time. If you'd like a different time, we can discuss that. And if the council chambers are open, we can certainly move the time. I'll turn that back over to the board.
Okay. Are there items for the future agenda that you'd like to put on here? So I know in March we'll be wanting to talk about the volunteer pool again. So. And then any announcements of community interest? Anything you want to brag about?
I'm going to brag about something. We have been putting on a mountain bike festival. We had it at Kelly Creek starting in 1999. And then we moved it to Camp Eagle in 2005. And we are now moving that mountain bike festival to Kerrville Shriner Park. And it will be the weekend after the River Festival, October 24th and 25th. And we, prior to that, we've been building trail out there. I don't know if any of you know that, but we have an 8.5-mile loop, and we're going to be adding more trail this winter. We are doing, we have 4, possibly 5, depending on how far we get, scheduled work dates. Starting the first, they'll be all 4 Sundays of January, and from 1 to 4 p.m. And if you're interested in helping, we're actually building trails. So it is hard work. You know, you're like long sleeves and safety glasses, and you know, we're hand sawing and clearing quarters and then creating tread and building trail. So we're building a more sustainable, easier way to get to the lookout at Kerrville Shriner Park, because there's only 2 undeveloped hillsides in Kerrville. That is one of them, and the other one is at Singing Wind Park. And so anyway, we're going to be adding trail, but we're excited about bringing the mountain bike festival to the city, and it's going to be a great venue. This will be part of the Texas Cup Series as the Texas State so out at Camp Eagle we had over 300 racers, and that's a pretty remote location, so we're hoping that we probably in our first year get between 300 and 400. And I just realized that the weekend before is typically a pre-ride weekend for people, which will be the weekend of the River Festival. So there'll be people in, so we'll do some cross promotion for that, as well as the haunted house, which they'll be able to ride on the new river trail over to Kerrville Shriner and then get to the haunted house by bicycle. So that's going to be cool. Anyway, so just to let everybody know, an added event that is not pulling from staff. We'll have lots of volunteers, but we will be basically taking it to the park that weekend. So.
Okay. Is there anything else that someone would like to add? Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I so move.
Second.
And so we are adjourned. See you in March.
Good.